First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Bracha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Acts, the 21st chapter. And so, as we left off in the 20th chapter, as Paul wraps up his third missionary journey, he says farewell to the elders of Ephesus when he called them to. I believe he was at Miletus or Miletus when he called them over to him. And so 21 continues from that point on as he makes his way to Jerusalem. And it came to pass after we were gotten from them and had launched, we came with a straight course to Kos. So what I'll do is I'll just keep this up here, and we can just follow the diagram, and I'll just keep reading the verses that are pertinent to the routes, and then once that's done, I'll switch back to the verses, and we can see that there. So this is Acts chapter 21, verse 1, right? And it came to pass after we were gotten from them and had launched. So from Miletus, we came with a straight course to Kos, which we see here on the bottom. Now, where you're looking at is, if you look all the way to the left of your screen, the yellow area, Asia. You look all the way south of that, you'll see that area there, about the southern border area-ish. And the day following onto Rhodes, right? So following that arrow, they made their way to Rhodes, and from thence on to Patara, which is now here in Lycia. And finding a ship sailing over onto Phoenicia, we went abroad and set forth. So they found a ship from Patara, one that was sailing over to Phoenicia, which is referring to that area of Tyre and Zidon. So they get on that and they come all the way. Now, when we had discovered Cyprus, right, which is this area, once they passed by it, we left it on the left hand and sailed into Syria. So when they saw Cyprus, they didn't stop there. They passed by it and came into Syria and landed at Tyre, for there the ship was to unlade her burden, so to unload the cargo. And finding disciples, we tarried there 7 days. So they stayed there at Tyre right here for about 7 days, right? Having found some believers over there, who said to Paul through the Spirit that he should not go up to Jerusalem. So they were trying to warn him to say, look, don't go. The Spirit has showed us that it's not going to be, it's not going to be good for you. And when we had accomplished those days, we departed and went our way. And they all brought us on our way with wives and children till we were out of the city. And we kneeled down on the shore and prayed. And when we had taken our leave one of another, we took ship, and they returned home again. So they stayed with Paul and company, and basically saw him off. And once Paul and those that were with him boarded the ship, then the believers returned back to their city, returned back home. And when we had finished our course from Tyre, we came to Ptolemais. So you see that from Tyre, Ptolemais, and saluted the brethren and abode with them 1 day. And the next day, we that were of Paul's company, those that were with Paul, departed and came on to Caesarea, that final port. And we entered into the house of Philip the evangelist, which was one of the 7, and abode with him. Now, when you look into Philip the evangelist, he's identified with, what verse is this? Verse 8. Going back to the beginning of Acts, right? They were the 7 men that were chosen, trustworthy to see to the ministration. the daily ministration and so on. So Philip, the evangelist here being one of them, which when you look it up, it says that this is different. This is a different Philip than Philip the apostle. So I want to see if it'll show the one in Acts over here. Oh, not this one. Let's look up the name, Philip. Yeah. So you have the Acts 6 and 5. You have this Philip here, which was mentioned as one of the faithful men, right? That was set over the administration here, which that is who is this Philip the evangelist. So anyway, they stay with him for a bit, which was one of the seven, and abode with him. And the same man had 4 daughters, virgins, which did prophesy. Now, this prophesying does not mean they were, once again, it's not like they had garments. They were out there with scriptures, breaking down script. No, um, a more realistic scenario would be either the Lord would, show them visions or dreams of things to come, and then they would basically speak on that, right? Because really, when you look at the prophets of old, that's really how a lot of their prophetic writings came about, through visions and dreams that they were showed. See, and so the daughters here of Philip here seem to have been given that gift. And as we tarried there many days, there came down from Judea a certain prophet named Agabus. This is the same Agabus that had shown them or prophesied to them while they were in Antioch of the dearth, which is a famine that was to come, that would affect pretty much everybody, and as a result of that, they were resolved to go and send relief to those in Jerusalem. So when Agabus came, and when he was come unto us, he took Paul's girdle and bound his own hands and feet, and said, Thus saith the Holy Spirit, so shall the Jews at Jerusalem bind the man that owneth this girdle, and shall deliver him into the hand of the Gentiles, which are the Romans. And so he basically prophesied how whoever owned the girdle, which in that case was Paul, was going to be bound and delivered into the hands of the Romans. And when we heard these things, both we and they of that place besought him not to go up to Jerusalem. So everybody was trying to stop Paul from going to Jerusalem in their minds, right, for his own sake, for his own good. Because it's like all the signs are telling you what's going to happen if you go there. Now, Agabus has explicitly prophesied it. Then Paul answered, What mean ye to weep and to break mine heart? For I am ready, not to be bound only, but also to die at Jerusalem for the name of the Lord Yahushua. So he's saying, look, don't break my heart, make me sorrowful with all this weeping and crying. I'm good. I'm not afraid of it. I'm like, if that's what has to happen, I'm ready for it. I'm more than ready. If that's how I have to finish my course for the Lord's sake. And when he would not be persuaded, we ceased, saying, The will of the Lord be done. So when they realized they couldn't change his mind, they just stopped and they said, all right, let the Lord's will be done then. And when he would, Salakia, verse 15, and after those days, we took up our carriages and went up to Jerusalem. So they finally made their way to Jerusalem. There went with us also certain of the disciples of Caesarea, and brought with them one Nason of Cyprus, an old disciple with whom we should lodge. So he would host them, right, and where they could stay. Basically, they could stay with him. And we, when we were come to Jerusalem, the brethren received us gladly. And the day following, Paul went in with us unto James, and all the elders were present. And when he had saluted them, he declared particularly what things God had wrought among the Gentiles by his ministry. So all the, the prosperous works that he had, the different, the believers, the acts of the churches, and, all the good work the Lord had done amongst the Israelite foreigners that Paul went to teach to. And when they heard it, they glorified the Lord and said unto him, Thou seest, brother, how many thousands of Jews there are which believe, and they are all zealous of the law. So it basically told him, look, you know that there's also a large amount, a large body of the Jews that believe, and they're very zealous when it comes to the law. Wherefore, verse 21, and they are informed of thee, that thou teachest all the Jews which are among the Gentiles to forsake Moses. So basically, like, the talk of the town concerning you is that they're under the impression that you're basically teaching them to the Jews all around in the various areas, the different parts you went to basically forsake the law of Moses, right? To abandon the laws, saying that they ought not to circumcise their children, neither to walk after the customs. So they were painting this picture, right? At least, those that would seek to give Paul a bad name, painting this picture as though he's teaching apostasy, right? He's teaching for you to abandon the laws and the customs, and just go in reverse of of um of the things that were taught to them, going back to Moses. What is it therefore? The multitude must needs come together, for they will hear that thou art come. It says, what should we do? They will certainly hear that you have come. And they're going to gather because that's the impression they're under. So, you know what? They're now thinking of a plan to come up with to clear all of this up. Do therefore this that we say unto thee. We have 4 men which have a vow on them. So they took a vow. Take them, and now they're at the point of completion. And the law tells you how to do that, right? When you're under the vow, you complete it, and then you shave your head, and then the hair is offered, and all of that. So they wanted Paul to partake in that, and that would show, like, it would show them that, hey, Paul keeps the laws. Like, it doesn't make sense for him to be going and telling other Jews to abandon the laws. But look, would one that is going around teaching that do this? Take and purify thyself with them, and be at changes with them, that they may shave their heads, and all may know that those things whereof they were informed concerning thee are nothing, but that thou thyself also walkest orderly and keepest the law. So this would dispel any false, ideas they may have about you. So in the NLT, it says, go with them to the temple and join them in the purification ceremony, paying for them to have their heads ritually shaved. Then everyone will know that the rumors are all false, and that you yourself observe the Jewish laws. As touching the Gentiles which believe, we have written and concluded that they observe no such thing, save only that they keep themselves from things offered to idols, and from blood, and from strangled, and from fornication. And this was going all the way back to the council at Jerusalem, right? So he's saying concerning them, they're fine. They don't have to be burdened with trying to keep all the works of the law. We've already written to them the things that they should focus on when it comes to that. Then Paul took the men, and the next day, purifying himself with them, entered into the temple. Now this was at Jerusalem, to signify the accomplishment of the days of purification. So he went in there to let it be known, okay, when the day of completion of the purification of these men that were under this vow would be, until that an offering should be offered for every one of them, because that's what the law required, right? You would have an offering made for you at the completion of that vow for your purification. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people and laid hands on him. Now remember, it was in Asia that, and other places, but mainly there that he suffered many troubles. Okay, right here, and then remember their same Jews that were from Antioch went to those different areas, Iconium and Derbe, and then stirred up the people, to stone Paul. So when Jews from there heard that Paul was here and they saw him, where is it at? Verse 27. Right, when they saw him in the temple, they basically stirred up the people and laid hands on him, right? Crying out, "Men of Israel, help. This is the man that teacheth all men everywhere against the people and the law and this place." So they were stirring up, spreading false rumors and accusations against Paul. Yeah, that's him. He's the guy that's teaching everybody to abandon the customs and the laws of Moses, and you don't need to circumcise your children. Basically, what happened to our ancestors during the time of the Greeks, he's pushing shit like that on them. He's deceiving our people, and he's spreading all this apostasy. Get him. And further brought Greeks also into the temple, and hath polluted this holy place. But where was the proof of that? See, so they just threw that out there, and Jake, they got stirred up quick. So for they had seen before with him in the city Trophimus, an Ephesian, whom they supposed that Paul had brought into the temple. So Trophimus here would have been an Israelite foreigner from Ephesus, and when they saw him with Paul earlier, they were, as it says, they assumed that Paul had brought him into the temple. That's why they said that. And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut. So they grabbed him up, they dragged him out of the temple, they shut the doors. And as they went about to kill him, tidings came on to the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. So remember that being that Jerusalem was a province of Rome, there were Roman bands, or kind of like today you have police precincts in different neighborhoods and areas, something along those lines. So the chief captain in charge of them, word came to him and said, "Hey, the whole city's in an uproar. There's like a riot going on. You got to go check it out." And their job was to keep the order. Today, if there's an issue, people call what? The cops, right? Who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down onto them. And when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left beating of Paul. So when they dragged him, they were about to basically beat him to death. And when they saw the Roman troops coming in there, they basically backed up. It's like today, if the people, a group of, you'll see a group of people jumping somebody, and then they'll see the sirens of the cops pull up, and then everybody will start scattering and backing up. Then the chief captain came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains. So they basically arrested Paul because they wanted to find out what's going on, and they didn't need him running off because they don't know him, right? So they're trying to assess the situation, and demanded who he was and what he had done. And some cried one thing, some another among the multitude. So there's a whole lot of Israelites here. They're all screaming one thing, while some people are screaming another thing. As a crowd, it's hard to understand what they're trying to say. And when he could not know the certainty for the tumult, he commanded him to be carried into the castle. So he wasn't sure, okay, what causes, what's going on here? So for now, he commanded Paul to be taken into the castle. Now, when you look up that word castle here, it's really just like it was an area that the Roman legions would dwell, like their camping place, you could say, while they were in the city. So it says here, an encampment. Number 2, the barracks of the Roman soldiers, which at Jerusalem were in the castle of Antonia. So let's look up here. Castle of Antonia. Here is known as the Antonia Fortress. It was a citadel built by Herod the Great and named for Herod's patron Mark Antony, hence the name Antonia, which Herod supported Mark Antony before he switched sides to Octavian once Mark Antony took the L against Octavian. As a as a fortress whose chief function was to protect the second temple. See, so that was the that's why it looks very joined. It's very close to the temple actually. It was built in Jerusalem in the eastern end of the second wall at the northwestern corner of the Temple Mount, and was connected to the temple by porticos. So if you look at this image here, you can see here it's literally joined right to the side of the temple, so it's very close. Right, you can see here, and that's why the when you read back in Acts, the Roman soldiers were able to get there so quickly because remember they had dragged Paul out of the temple. So they command him carry him back into the castle, and when he was come upon the stairs, so it was that he was borne, he was carried of the soldiers for the violence of the people. So they had to carry him out of there because the people were that close to killing him. For the multitude of the people followed after, crying, away with him, kill this guy. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek? So Paul spoke to him in Greek, and he was a bit surprised, like, Oh, you can speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days madest an uproar, and leddest out into the wilderness 400 or 4,000 men that were murderers? So there had been, some earlier incident involving this false prophet who, let's actually type it in here. Let's see, Egyptian. Um, okay, let's see if it'll come up here. Trying to see if I can find the name. Okay, let's see what it says here. So, yes, he mistaken him for it. Yeah, in the Jewish Wars and Antiquities of the Jews, and Acts mentions this. Just trying to find the brief account of it. Let's see if I have this anywhere else. Yeah, there's a. Let me see. Business. Okay, Antiquities of the Jews, Book 20, Chapter 8. Though I don't have that on me right now, so we'll just take a look at one of these. Okay. The Egyptian. There we go. It might be this one here. Yeah, here it is. So it says here, this is the individual that the Lysias, which was the chief officer here, mistook Paul for. So it says the Egyptian, or Ha-Mitzri, which would be Matazar Yah, was a first century Jewish political figure. Always the first century is from 0 to 100 AD. So it says here, always described as a site a sign prophet or a messianic prophet, he is said to have assembled a sizable gathering of followers atop the Mount of Olives, either in preparation of an assault of Jerusalem in order to establish himself as the ruler of the people, or in the expectation that he would miraculously cause the walls of the city to fall, allowing his followers to enter the city. This group was crushed by the Roman procurator of Judea, Antonius Felix. And I believe this might be the same Felix that Paul was sent to, for trial. And the Egyptian fled, while many of his followers were killed and captured, with the remainder managing to flee and hide. The campaign was initially supported by Helena of Adibene, but repressed by Herod Agrippa II. The thing is, they didn't catch him, right? And so, um, this chief officer here thought that maybe this Egyptian prophet had returned, and that was Paul, and that's why the whole city was in such an uproar. There was an Egyptian. This is from Josephus in his Jewish War. There was an Egyptian false prophet that did the Jews more mischief than the former, for he was a cheat and pretended to be a prophet also, and got together 30,000 men that were deluded by him. These he led round about. So here Josephus gives an account of 30,000 in the book of Acts. What is it, 4,000, if I remember correctly? Either way, Josephus here seems to be referring to the same individual. It says here, these he led round about from the wilderness to the mountain or the mount, which was called the Mount of Olives. Salakia. Which is called the Mount of Olives. He was ready to break into Jerusalem by force from that place. And if he could but once conquer the Roman garrison and the people, he intended to rule them by the assistance of those guards of his that were to break into the city with him. But Felix prevented his attempt and met him with his Roman soldiers, insomuch that when it came to a battle, the Egyptian ran away. So since they weren't able to catch him, the centurion thought that maybe this Egyptian was Paul that had resurfaced his head again. So going back to the book of Acts 21, where we at? Yeah. So 21 and 39. But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city of Cilicia. And Cilicia was a province of Rome, a citizen of no mean city. And I mean, and let's look into that word mean. But basically, like this, when it says mean, it doesn't mean like mean as in your. Today you say somebody's mean because they told you to shut up. Not that kind of mean. Here it says unmarked or unstamped, of money, insignificant, ignoble. Okay. So when he says of no mean city, he means that he was a citizen of one of the city he was from wasn't a small, or they weren't light work. They were an important city. And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. So allow me to say, speak to them. And when he had given him license, Paul stood on the stairs and beckoned with the hand onto the people. So he basically, signaled with his hand for them to be quiet. And when there was made a great silence, he spake unto them in the Hebrew tongue, saying. And that brings us to the end of the book of Acts, the 21st chapter. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.